Before we get started, just a quick note, spoiler alert.
And we are adults, and I will try very hard not to use adult language, but this is the warning.
I was about to hit end. Okay, I'm ready. Hello and welcome to Last Library on the Left. My name is Jennifer.
And I'm Sadina. We're a horror review and discussion podcast where we talk about horror in books, movies, and other formats, why we seek it out, and why we need it in our lives.
Wait, is this going to be a Valentine's Day episode?
Yes. I may have planned that on purpose.
We're going to record next week on Saturday after work, if you're okay with it. But Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday, and I was like, wait a minute, it's also Valentine's weekend. But yeah, this is our Valentine's episode.
Yeah, and because I am a very dark human being, and we'll talk about it in the second half, but I associate this type of stuff with Valentine's Day way more than I should.
No, you need to say it now because we did it in our work podcast.
So there's this thing, it came from a paper in 2014, and y'all, if you've been listening to this for a little while, you probably get that I love neuroscience and really anything that explains the weird tics of our brains and stuff like that. So this was also something that I talked about with my mom when the paper came out. My mom was really into it too. But it's called cute aggression, and it is trying to explain the linguistic phenomena that occurs. I discussed this with Miriam as well. It occurs across cultures. Mm-hmm. You know, she was saying that she hears it in Spanish, she hears it in Urdu, she hears it in everywhere. So this is something that occurs for the most part everywhere. But when you see something like a puppy or a kitten or a baby and they're just so cute and squishy and vulnerable and your brain is overloaded and you just go, you're so cute, I could just eat you. That's because your brain is having a meltdown. It is so overloaded by these spikes in positive feelings that in order to restabilize the chemicals in your brain so you don't have a meltdown over something being too cute, the pendulum swings to the opposite end of the spectrum and is like, kill it, devour it, consume it. And so you say out loud, in order to stabilize yourself, you're so cute, I could eat you. Yeah. Or like, oh, those thighs are so chunky, and you go, num, 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 or whatever, like the pinch of the cheeks and all those things. Mm-hmm. Those are actually things that your body is doing to help restabilize your emotional chemical balance. It just sounds crazy. So I associate all of these zombie things, and I'm not even sure how my brain made those leaps. I think of zombies eating hearts and brains and all those things, especially with the East European Thragoi, which is the Eastern European vampire.
Yeah.
Mythology there is that the returned or revenant goes back first to their family to consume their family, either to turn them or to consume them. That also plays into that. Then maybe that's why my brain was like, oh yeah, Valentine's Day and zombieism, that makes sense.
It's so funny because we have a mutual coworker who, when we started the podcast, he's like, where are the zombies? And I was like, Sadina, we have to do zombies because he's been asking. And she's like, yeah, we're going to do it in February. And I remember thinking like, why February? Now, cool.
I think we were asked about it pretty early on in the recordings of our podcast. And like, theoretically, I guess we could have done it much sooner. But my brain was like, where do zombies belong? Oh, zombies belong in February for Valentine's Day, obviously. So I just said it as a throwaway statement because in my brain, the two exist. Right? Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't associate the two of them before that.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah,
because I'm of the eating of the hearts.
Yeah, I'm not going to confirm nor deny because I feel like that may get me into further hot water. But when I read Cute Aggression, the paper, my mom and I had this massive discussion about babies and kittens and puppies and stuff. And it's just fascinating to me to think that our brain gets this spike of cuteness and its way to cope with it is sort of the way that I cope with things that I find a little too emotionally overwhelming. And then your brain's like, oh, okay, good. I'm leveled back out. Everything's fine.
Yeah. But okay, so we talked about it in our other podcast. And then I went home and I was talking to my mom about it. So, okay, this necklace that I wear, it's all evil eye stuff. Mm-hmm. But when you have babies, there's this thing that we put on them in our culture called a tikka. And if you see any old pictures of Aurora when she was a baby, she has a black dot on her forehead. And it's so that the evil eye goes there as opposed to anywhere else. But my mom's like, she goes, you can either put it on the forehead or you put it behind her ear or on her thigh. And I was like, but who would wish that on my baby? And she was like, no. It's not for people that wish that on the baby because regardless, it'll go there. But she goes, it's for people that unknowingly do that because the baby is so cute that they want to eat her cheeks and stuff. And I was like, that's what Sadina was talking about. I was like, oh, So I can confirm what Miriam was saying.
I think that there's some variation of it across all cultures, and it's not something that everybody sat down and agreed upon linguistically, because in English it's "you're so cute I could eat you."
Yeah.
But that there's other ways that other cultures help sort of restabilize, because I think the paper also was talking about how the faster someone says out loud, "you're so cute I could eat you," or "I could just eat you up," the faster your brain stabilizes.
Wow. So interesting.
Mm.
It's very true. I pretended to bite my daughter's cheeks many a time because she was just,
Yeah.
they were just so cute and chubby. So,
yeah. And there's definitely fan art out there of ships and stuff that people love. And sometimes they'll show one side of the relationship chomping on the cheek of the other side instead of kissing them. That's just universal. This idea to like just,
yeah.
I love you so much.
Yeah. So crazy. So for February, we're covering zombies.
Yeah, I don't think this was at all what you were thinking about when you were like, hey, let's talk about zombies. And I was like, yeah, let's talk about loving someone so much we want to consume them.
He's going to listen to this and the texts are going to start flooding my phone.
Oh yeah, he'll never talk to me again.
So today we're covering Warm Bodies and Life After Beth, which are two... Sadina just pairs them so perfectly together because they're like romantic zombie movies. Romantic comedies?
Yeah, I mean,
romantic
I definitely think they're
zombies?
Zombies.
I don't know. I tried to do something there. But I've never watched Life After Beth. I've watched Warm Bodies before because I read the book. But the first movie we're going to talk about is Warm Bodies. Let me give you the information for it. Warm Bodies was released in 2013. It was directed by Jonathan Levine. The screenplay was written by Jonathan Levine based on the novel by Isaac Marion. And it stars Nicholas Hoult as R, Teresa Palmer as Julie, John Malkovich as Grigio, Leo Tipton as Nora, Rob Corddry as M, and Dave Franco as Perry. Warm Bodies takes you through the life of, the undead life of R, I guess, as he navigates zombie life and wanting more out of zombie life.
Yeah, not his old life, but just trying to figure out how to get more out of what he currently has.
Yeah, the tagline here says, "Cold body, warm heart."
Also, I feel like just naming the core group helps us remember that it's a parody of Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, which I didn't get the first couple times I've seen this movie. I only just got it when I was watching it for this episode.
Our friend M loves the book. And so I remember watching it with her. That was actually a movie I think we watched on my birthday, maybe. And she was like, oh yeah, it's like Romeo and Juliet. And so I knew that R was Romeo and Julie was Juliet. But my dumb ass didn't figure out the rest of the cast until watching it this time.
I was so dumbfounded halfway through. I was like, oh, they're having a little Romeo and Juliet reenactment. I was like, oh my God. It's literally Romeo and Juliet. Why am I so stupid? I blame on the fact that I was consuming a lot of zombie stuff around that time because like I think Walking Dead was around and like zombies had really come into fame around this time. So I just blame it on that. You should have watched this by now if you're listening. I mean, it's been around for a long time. So I
agree. It's almost been around for 10 whole years, which was shocking. But I think also plays into why watching it now was completely different from watching it in 2013. I mean, so drastically to the point where I was like, I'm not enjoying this in the same way because it's a little traumatic.
Yes, we talked about this when we were recording another episode and I was like, I don't like it as much as I did before because I own this. I own the DVD, I own the book. I was like, no, I was slightly triggered.
Yeah, because watching it in 2013 during the Obama administration, during a lot of more progressive things being passed in the nation, things like that. I mean, things were still not easy, but things were looking up. And then 45 was elected, and then QAnon happened, and then COVID happened. And I was like, I am not okay.
Listen, COVID has done mentally, it has done a lot to me.
Yeah, I feel like the post-apocalyptic hope is not there. We're struggling. We're divided, especially the divided part.
Yeah.
Bonies and humans and corpses, because they don't call them zombies.
Yeah.
It was so much more of a statement now.
Yeah.
Even though it was written before all of the dumpster fire that's occurring.
Yeah, it was so relevant to, God, the divide divide stuff. I can have conversations with my coworkers, and I've made it very clear that I lean more liberal than I do conservative, but I also think moderately. It's like I have some conservative views too, but I'm just not extreme either way. And when I'm talking with my coworkers, I can't really say my opinion just because it will start an argument. I don't believe in talking politics with company. That's just not me, because there's just such a divide. And man, that part hit home. I was like, it's so triggered.
And I think the other thing that was a little triggering about the divide between bonies and corpses and humans and everything like that was that I was trying to watch it and figure out, okay, well, which side am I on? You know, which side is QAnon? Which side is what? And I was like, but they're all making bad choices. Like even the humans are not making good choices, and they're supposed to be quote unquote the good guys in the story. But they're run by Malkovich, which by the way, my cousin Corey had told me for years that he was one of the best actors there ever was. And I was like, he's a little weird. And only in the last maybe 5 years or so, I really have started to appreciate him as an actor, because good Lord, that man is versatile.
He's so versatile.
And Space Force, so good. So good. I was like, what? Okay, sir. But rewatching this, it felt more like his other cuckoo extremist roles. He's not a good guy. I mean, he is in the end, but he's not a good guy. He's extremist too. And I was like, I'm a corpse, I guess. You know, I take that back though. QAnon is the bonies. Full blown. All stuff. QAnon is the bonies.
Listen, those bonies, they scared me. Those were straight out of M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. That's legit what I saw. And I was like, those things, they scared me. I don't know if, no, I know I do it. I erase things from my brain when I can't handle it. And I erase those things. So I was like, I don't remember them being in here.
I absolutely did not remember the scene where a corpse is turning into a bony, because I was like, no, I'm good.
Oh man, it was so gross. Before the bonies, when R was reminiscing about the past and people connecting with each other, and you see the flashback and everyone is on a device. And that reminded me of Krampus in the beginning of Krampus.
A kind of tongue-in-cheek.
It's like we're just being called out left and right.
You know, and I found that interesting too, because I actually made a note about that scene specifically as well. I said that feeling disconnected from humanity in 2013 is different from being disconnected from humanity today, especially since 2020s, because technology was the only way we had to connect for almost the last 2 years. So that scene, I was like, wow, what a privileged way to look at technology and the connection of humanity as being like, I don't know, it shocked me, because I was like, wow, 10 years later, and being glued to your phone or your device is literally the only way to stay connected.
But you know what? We're both from generations where we didn't have technology to connect with people. We had to do without. So for me, 10 years ago, I don't remember a device being in my hand while I was out in public.
No.
And I know I had a phone, and I know that I used it, but I don't remember specifically. I definitely didn't have an iPhone then. So I don't think I was using my smartphone to the extent of some of the folks that were using it in the movie. So I was going in my brain just thinking like, was I really like that? I don't think so, because I think the only time I got onto a social media account was when I was at home on my laptop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that maybe that it was hyperbolic for sure in that scene, because I as well was not glued to my phone. In fact, I would say that I remember my phone being in my back pocket far more than it being like today. I would never leave my phone in my pocket. It is out there on the desk where I can see it.
Yeah, my phone is never in my back pocket now, just for fear of someone grabbing it.
But that's the difference. I mean, gosh, I really do keep it where I can see it at all times. And I never felt that way about it in 2013 for sure, but even before that.
Yeah, and to be honest, my phone from back then to now didn't have as much, like this phone here is worth more to me than any of the phones I had in the past, because it has some personal information on it. It has my daughter's pictures on there. So it's never out of my sight either. Technology has come so far in the past 10 years. And you're right, in the past 2-3 years, we've just become so used to having technology at our beck and call because we've needed it for, you know, because of the pandemic.
Even before then, in 2016, I played a part of helping people organize protests across America. area from where I was in Boston, I kept people abreast of whatever movement was cropping up in Colorado, California, Washington, Texas, obviously. And it got to a point where I was so constantly on my phone and involved in sharing information, being like the middleman, connecting people to their local representatives or whatever it was, that at some point Nadine called me and she was on the phone and she was like, you have to stop going to these. She's like, you're going to get shot. And I was like, I will be fine. But I was really super involved in these things. And it wouldn't have happened that way if it weren't for technology.
Yeah. See, I mean, I know around that same time, most of what I did on social media was what most library staff do. You talk about misinformation and finding realistic sources that are verifiable and true. So it was a lot of trying to do that education from afar. But even then, like, I don't know that I was on my phone that much because it was just so depressing to be online.
Yeah. I definitely went the other way. We're going to really devolve into a tangent. We don't have to do all that. Sorry, guys. We will talk about the movie. I'm just saying that like the movie was so drastically different watching it when it came out to now when our lives are so different. And that's actually the bulk of my notes are viewing this movie now as someone who lives in 2022 versus viewing this movie as someone who came out of 2012.
Yeah, it was a weird experience. I wrote down here, eating brains to feel was really interesting for R because it's not a falsity to say that we all feel sort of like a disconnect since March of 2020. And I was just thinking like, wow, I'm really living in an apocalypse because I'm so disconnected. Like this is the longest I've gone from seeing my family in Canada. And I'm just like, I just want to make a trip up there so bad. And I don't even know if it's going to happen this year even because like, I just don't want to risk my family's health. My grandmother is I'm not going to age her because that would be rude, but she's not getting younger.
Right.
And I don't want to risk her health. And then there's new babies that I haven't seen yet. You know what I mean? The disconnect is for sure so real. So when R was talking about eating brains just to feel something, I was like, oh gosh, I understand R. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Did you ever read or watch iZombie?
No, I didn't.
And it came out before the movie. It started to print in 2010. The zombie, she relives people's memories as well by eating their brain. And so I was like, I wonder if I didn't look up the publication date of the book for Warm Bodies. I was like, I wonder which one like influenced the other. Because it's an interesting idea of the way that the neural pathways. Okay, I'm once again gonna bore you guys with all my neuroscience stuff, but the way that the brain creates neural pathways and how long the brain will continue to sort of send out those electrical pulses after you're dead. Fascinating. I could totally see zombies, especially if they have a regular diet of brains. Maybe they could stay corpses for longer versus bonies.
Interesting. So Warm Bodies, the book, was published in 2010 as well.
Oh, whoa. So they really overlapped. Interesting.
Yeah. That's a really interesting coincidence on both their parts, right? It's so weird.
Yeah. Side note, Rahul Kohli is in the iZombie TV show and you should absolutely watch it.
Oh my gosh. Like now I have to watch it. He is. Oh my gosh.
His accent. I cannot wait for Fall of the House of Usher. Anyway.
We knew, you pegged it. You knew he was going to be in it.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I just want to point out some of the smaller physical comedies of Warm Bodies. Really, I loved the actor plays M, which is Mercutio, when they're at the bar and they're like hungry, and then he goes to get up to the bar and he puts up his hand to call for a check, and then he looks at his hand like, "The fuck am I doing?" And he gets up and he walks away, and I was like, that is such a subtle, brilliant nod to the fact that they're not completely vacant yet.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
That's really funny. The only thing I have left is trivia because I was really wondering why I love this movie so much because I was like, I've changed so much since I last watched it, which that makes me sad when I watch movies and I've changed so much that I don't enjoy them as much anymore.
You didn't change on purpose. The world absolutely changed us.
Yeah. Okay. So when all of the zombie stuff was happening, as far as being repopularized in pop culture, I was completely on board, but it got me thinking, it's not the zombies I'm afraid of. If you watch The Walking Walking Dead, I'm afraid of the flu because that was one of the best seasons. I think it was season 3 or 4. One of the best seasons when the flu was going around and searching for food and stuff. And I'm like, I don't think I would live. I would absolutely be dead.
You should follow some of the foragers on TikTok. There's a couple of really great forager accounts that I follow, and I'm just like mentally making notes, stacking them away. I'm like, all right, I got this.
No. I don't want to think about it. The way grocery prices are going, I'm going to have to think about it.
Well, and if we have an apocalypse, don't worry, Jennifer, I'll help you survive.
Okay, good. I tell people I can cook. I can absolutely cook you a meal. Just give me the stuff. So one of the things, speaking of Walking Dead, when Julie tries to run on the tarmac, she's officially, R has kidnapped her. He told her that she can't go back to her place. She has to wait with him for a few days before she returns. She tries to run away. And as she's running on the tarmac, you see a zombie who looks like Rick from The Walking Dead.
Oh, I did not pick up on that.
I didn't pick up on it either. I looked up trivia. There was another one that I thought was really funny, and I had to say it for my sister because she was a total fan of the 1980s movie Airplane. When R brings Julie to the airport, there's an announcement that plays overhead, and it says, "White zone is for loading and unloading of passengers." Because, Airplane, I don't know if you've ever watched it with, I think it's Leslie Nielsen. It is full of puns and sarcasm, and it is the absolute best. Like, at one point someone says to another person, like, "Shirley, you can't be serious," and the other person says, "I am serious, and please don't call me Shirley."
That joke I do know. That's actually the only thing I know about Airplane.
So if you've heard that, it's definitely funny. It is really, oh gosh, it's one of the best. And so when I saw that trip, I was like, that was cute. And then the last thing I wrote was zombies didn't start blinking until after they started to change back more of their humanity.
Ooh, I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way that, so his heart restarts because of the connection he finds with Julie, but the connection that they have inspires M and the other corpses at the airport to sort of jumpstart their own, which I really found inspiring. But then I forgot that the Bonies were there and raced and chased them out of the airport. And I was like, oh no, I totally forgot. And I panicked. It went from this like really beautiful, inspiring scene to, fuck.
Man, those Bonies came out of nowhere. I was like, dude.
Well, because at the very, very beginning, when R is talking about them, he was like, yeah, and the Bonies, they'll go after anything with a heartbeat. And so they had all restarted their hearts. They must have heard them in that massively vacant airport. And it just really freaked me out.
Oh, the Bonies were so scary. Ugh.
I thought they were kind of cool looking. I don't know, whatever. We won't. I think the only other thing that really I feel like there should have been more of an explanation as for why Perry, who was supposed to be Paris, went from like a sort of, I don't mean meek in a bad way, but like he felt meek in agriculture. And then he went to this like super agro-militarized person after he lost his father. I didn't really like that part of his, I don't know if you could even call it character development, because he was so absent for a lot of the movie. I feel like we see him way more in flashbacks than we do when he's alive.
Right, because I think we only see him when R eats part of his brain to get those memories or whatever. And same, the connection there from the way he was before to after his dad passed, I couldn't make the full connection. Because I understand, like, you change when there's death, and when it's a death of a parent, I understand, like, that's a huge change. But I couldn't understand, okay, did a zombie, like, bite your dad and that's what happened? Or did the disease get your dad and he became a zombie and then there was a disconnect there. And so I didn't understand why he became so incensed afterwards.
My problem with him was that his core personality traits with Julie specifically changed so drastically.
Yeah.
Some of the affection and need to protect Julie initially, I think, in R came from whatever he was getting secondhand from Perry. To have those moments that you see in their early relationship, because he was cold as fuck to her. Yeah. And all the parts that we saw that where he was alive, he was completely cut off from her, distanced. He was dismissive of her and kind of rude. And so it's like, how do you go from loving and supportive and, I mean, how do you go from PETA to the other dude from District, Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense.
I didn't get it. It's so, it was a weird one for me, and I didn't get it too much. And I was like, okay.
We should talk about the classic balcony scene, because that was what triggered you to realize.
Yeah, so I was telling Sadina when we were talking, like, there's a scene when Julie finally returns home and she's in her camp, and at this point I think his heart has already kickstarted at that point. And you see subtle changes in him, like he's not quite as gray as he used to be, and his lips aren't as dark as they used to be. So he goes to see her because he has to see her, and she's literally on her balcony and he's down on the ground, and he's like, Julie. I was like, oh, look at them, they're having their little Romeo and Juliet moment. And I was like, oh my God. And then I thought back and I was like, oh my God, the girl wanted to be a nurse. The best friend.
Nora.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I think the conclusion for Perry was the last one I made for Perry in Paris, but I got Nora the nurse pretty early on after M and Mercutio.
See, and it took me towards the end and I was like, oh, that's Mercutio. I was like, what?
Well, I think that because in the very beginning, when they explain why that's R and M, it's because of the noises they make, which is and and so I believed that. I was like, sure.
Oh, I completely believed that. I was like, oh, his name was probably like Ralph or something, and he just couldn't remember. And I was like, you dummy.
I know, me too. One of the other things that I really liked about this movie, initially watching it, were some of the lines that were delivered and the way that they delivered them so well. I think my favorite was when they were trying to get R in to see Julie's dad, which is Malkovich, and there's a guard there, and the guard's kind of like looking at him all sus and everything, and R thinks, say something human, and he goes, how are you? And then he goes, nailed it. I was like, you are so awkward. You're clearly human again.
Yeah.
I feel like that's every first interaction ever. How are you? And then inside, nailed it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, he is every introverted kid.
Yes, it was very cute. I liked it. The delivery was solid. I think watching it this time, so much more that hit me was about how watching it in 2022 was different from watching it in 2013.
Oh my God, so different. I was just in shock of how much I felt I changed as opposed to when I first watched it back in 2013 in the theaters of all places. It was a really weird experience, like from 9 years ago.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, are there other movies that I have that I watched and really thoroughly enjoyed for the story, but now I'm living in such a drastically different time in the world that it just will reframe everything?
Yeah, I remember putting it back on my shelf thinking, like, do I want to rewatch some of these other DVDs or do I not want to? And I was like, you know what? Not right now. Because what else would change? It was a weird experience.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll move on to Life After Beth.
Which, by the way, guys, I told Jennifer, it's a comedy. It's hilarious. You'll love it. And Jennifer was like, watching it, was like, are you sure it's a comedy?
Yeah. So, okay, Life After Beth was released in 2014. It was written and directed by Jeff Baena. So here's the cast, and there's a lot of folks here. So here we go. There's Aubrey Plaza as Beth, Dane DeHaan as Zach, John C. Reilly as Maury Slocum, Molly Shannon as Jeannie Slocum, Cheryl Hines as Judy, Paul Reiser as Noah, Matthew Gray Gubler as Kyle, Anna Kendrick as Erica, Eva Ladair as Perline, Alan McLeod as the supermarket stalker, Paul Weitz as Mr. Levine, Michelle Azar as Mrs. Levine, Jim O'Hare as Chip the Mailman. There's so many people. Rob Delaney as the news anchor, Elizabeth Stilwell as Lucy, and Adam Pally as the diner sommelier, who I personally love Adam Pally. So I was really happy to see him in there.
I did not realize it was from 2014. I really thought it was more recent than that.
Yeah, I was like, wow, like there's so many big names. I was like, this has to be like a recent movie because it doesn't have too much fanfare. I was like, within the last 3 years because of COVID. And I was like,
yeah,
no, this is 2014. Like, what?
Yeah, I honestly thought it was a Hulu original because I think I watched it on Hulu for the first time during COVID.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Huh.
I was just in shock because I was like, this has to be bigger just because of the names. But
yeah, wow.
It is what it is. Like Sadina said, I took this one very seriously, and I know she said comedy, but I was like, this is so serious. There's so many very on the fence jokes. And then there was some that I just completely didn't get.
It was definitely dark comedy and dry. The delivery is very dry for quite a bit of it, which I love.
Yeah.
I think the majority of the cast is definitely meant to be Jewish because at the very beginning, the funeral, they're wearing kippah. And so there's lots of jokes that I think probably went over your head, maybe just because some of them, there were a lot of Jesus and resurrection jokes. Yeah. And there was a lot of confusion around it whenever they would bring up resurrection. And I think it's because the families were like, what do you mean a resurrection? We are Jewish. Yeah. Because at one point someone mumbles, but that's the New Testament. It's like, it cracked me up. It's also just really dark and probably a little inappropriate. That's very Jewish humor, to be a little off the wall, a little dark, and delivered as dryly as possible.
Yeah, sometimes I was like, oh, okay. That joke, it was funny, but what is a TikTok sound? That was a really funny joke, but you shouldn't have.
Oh, yeah. That was really funny, but I need you to stop.
Yeah, that was the sound that I was playing in my head a lot. Because like,
whereas meanwhile, for me, it's probably the TikTok trend where it's Elton John and they're going, that's not funny. You shouldn't do that. And then he goes, it's a little bit funny. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. But then I began to panic in about 20 minutes in because I remember thinking, like, Jennifer said that this was not funny. Am I sure it's funny? Because I sold it as pure comedy. Pure comedy. And so in my notes, about 20 minutes in, I was like, did I tell? Was I wrong? Is Jennifer? And then my next slide is, no, I was right. It's hilarious. So maybe take that with a grain of salt, guys, if you are going to watch Life After Beth. Also, Aubrey Plaza is a gift to comedy. Her delivery, she's a fucking gift to the screen as far as I'm concerned. She's brilliant in Legion. She's great in Parks and Rec. She's great in this. But I loved it. Jennifer, on the other hand, was like, this is a very serious matter.
Yeah, I was like, this is so serious. I am so zoned in on his grief. And why are the parents acting like that?
And maybe that's another reason why I found it so funny, because I think that Jewish people also handle their grief a little differently too. Yeah, no, it was it's great.
I absolutely love, because I wrote no note. I just was like, I don't know what to say about this. And then I went to IMDb. So when I have absolutely nothing that I can share and bring forth to the podcast proverbial table, I turn to IMDb and the trivia section. And all of the references I saw were Parks and Rec. And I was like, yeah, that's why I didn't get a lot of the references, because like I didn't watch Parks and Rec. And so now, like, it's on my list of things to watch after I watch Parks and Rec, so I can get some of this stuff.
You know, I wouldn't have even got that it was Parks and Rec jokes, aside from the fact that Aubrey Plaza was in it and Jim O'Hare, who also is just comedic gold. The way that he threw the mail at Zachary, and Zachary's just like, this isn't ours. And he's like, all right, have a good day. And he just like walks away. And that's the thing, is that even from the very beginning, it was hilarious to me where he's standing in the aisle looking for napkins and he's clearly in a funeral suit. Yeah. And the guy is like, hey, can I help you? And he's like, yeah, I need black napkins. And the guy's like, well, we don't have black. That's like more of a Halloween thing. And he kind of looks at him like, bro, just take a second to look.
Read the room.
Right. And that cracked me up. I was like, wow, this man is clearly on the brink of a meltdown looking for black napkins. And you're just like, I don't know, go to Party City.
I was like, wow, how rude. I was like, why did you have the foresight to think black napkins for a funeral? Like, in my mind, for a funeral, your thoughts are everything else is scattered. So you're just getting the first napkins like that you see. But he specifically with it.
In my experience, when you're going to a very somber funeral, like the people who are eating are probably not looking for napkins. They're looking for whatever is flat and clean to put the little bit of food they will eat on it. So good though. So good. Such a great opening scene. Because I knew immediately it was a funeral. I was like, oh, he's going to a funeral.
Yeah, I think even if you didn't, just by looking at his face, you're like, this dude is so freaking somber and so upset.
Yeah, he is not having a good day. And your reply to him is, go to Party City.
Check the Halloween section.
Brilliant.
Oh, God, so funny.
I also like that there's a runner from the very, very, very beginning that doesn't get closed until the end of the movie. The cleaning lady for the Slocum's family is running away from the house and she's like, don't go in there. It's crazy. They're mad and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, whoa. And they're Mr. and Mrs. Slocum are like, what was that about? Like, she's nuts. Can you believe that she didn't even finish cleaning? Blah, blah, blah. And she just happens to be Haitian. And so there's this underlying assumption that she knows why there's a zombie apocalypse occurring just because she's Haitian. And it comes back around as a very racist assumption at the very end where the cousin is like, do you just assume she knows because she's Haitian? And Zachary's like, yeah. And it had nothing to do with zombies, nothing at all. It was so good. Such a great runner to have a close. It was just, I loved it. I'm going to keep going on the funny bits because I got to let you guys know it is actually funny. And then we'll talk about the grief because I must have watched this movie and not really focused in on the grief, but I definitely picked up on the grief this time. But I think that there's definitely some great signs that something has gone terribly wrong in the world that they're underselling. When Zachary is leaving the Slocum's house late at night, right before Beth comes back, and there's a man who's running as fast as he can in the background, looking over his shoulder in fear. And Zachary just kind of looks at him like, that's weird, and keeps going with his day. That's clearly a sign. Kyle cracked
oh my god
up. Oh my god, Goobler, you are also a gift, sir. Also, your book is adorable, but he cracked me up. He has so many great lines that he delivers so deadpan. He feels like he has so much authority behind his like accusations, and he's the local guard cop for the gated community. He's no one.
No, he's no one.
But he speaks with the authority of a Desert Storm vet.
Yeah. He did it so well. So well.
He even accuses Zachary of killing the Slocums.
Yep.
And then he's like, are you your dead girlfriend's scarf? And he's like, you don't understand. You've never lost someone you loved. And it's like, still a little weird.
Yeah. I was kind of looking at him sideways, the brother, like, I don't know about you too much and the jokes that you're making and the statements you're making. But when he zeroed in on Zach and the scarf, I was like, yeah, I'm with you, friend. That's not right.
Yeah, and you knew it was going there as soon as he looked down at the scarf after smelling it. And I was like, ugh, men are so gross. And it wasn't enough just maybe touch yourself while smelling the scarf. No, you put the scarf over your dick. And I was like, bro, that's not okay.
No.
And this is where I wrote my note to myself. I was right. It is hilarious. And then I really like all the back and forth between John C. Reilly and Molly Shannon as the parents of Beth when she comes back, and all of their arguing back and forth, their attempts to keep her secret. But like, how long did they actually think that was going to pan out?
Yeah.
Genuinely? I mean, I get sort of in an abstract way being happy that your loved one is back, especially if they're your child. I don't have children of my own. Like, I don't know what that grief would be, but you can't actually think you're going to get away with that for too long, right?
Yeah.
Their back and forth was really good. Their timing was really good. I also really like that he kept being like, you're supposed to be on my side. Quit making this more difficult and blah, blah, blah. I love that when he goes back home and Zachary and he's like, oh, she's alive and they were punking me and it was a hoax. Da, da, da. And then the next scene is his mom is taking him to get an MRI. Yeah. He's insane. And there's no words. The scene is just him in an MRI looking at his mom and then looking back at him. And she's got a magazine and she's looking at him like, what?
Yeah.
Your dead girlfriend's back.
He can't lift his head up during the MRI, but okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I was like, okay, but where is the contraption that like makes your head feel like you're in that cage from actually 13 Ghosts, the jackal, like with the weird, you're like strapped in and they're like, also don't move during the hour. We'll have to do it again. And it's really I hope I never have to get another one again. It was, I thought I was going to black out. Actually, I was so anxious. But yes, I also had that thought. I was like, I hate that he was able to move his head. I also love that he is starting to suspect, when he starts to suspect, okay, like what is actually going on here? I know I'm not crazy. He goes to the grave and the hole is just a gaping hole in the gravesite, as if nobody in the week that she's been dead has seen the hole and been like, oh shit, we should do something about it. Oh, I also like that as they're trying to convince him that it's perfectly reasonable that she's come back, you know, dug herself out of her grave. They're like, you know, it was just a snake bite. We don't know what type of poisonous snake that was. Who knows? It could have been anything. And then Molly Shannon goes, it's like the resurrection. And he goes, but that's the New Testament. So funny. And then Beth is like, let's go hang out in the attic. And he's like, the attic? Why? And they're like, yeah, go to the attic. It'll be fine. And I was like, oh no.
Like, that's her new favorite spot.
I will say the very first time I watched this, she was like, let's go hang out in the attic. And I was like, ugh, I don't like that. And the way that they were like, yeah, go hang out in the attic. I was like, wait, is this not a zombie movie? Is this a murdering family movie? They were a little too keen about her going up in the attic with him. The super strength when she's just like dragging him whole bodily down the hall. That was really funny. And then one of the first things that she says to him when they're in the attic, she's like, that shy first date type of feeling. And she gets really close to him and she goes, your hair is so warm. And he's like, my hair is warm. So good. Oh my God. And then he wants to take her out and they're like, we'll only take her out hiking at night because it's safer. There's so much, guys, that is so funny. I feel like he's probably trying harder than he should to get to a situation where he could fuck his dead girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Especially after the pool scene where he saw the snake bite. I don't know. I feel like a normal person wouldn't be that eager to fuck something that was recently a corpse or that they assumed was a corpse, right?
Yeah. And then when you see a little bit of her
her dissection,
her autopsy, yeah. And I was like, and you still slept with her friend? Like,
right.
I couldn't imagine like touching, like putting my fingers over it.
Well, and for the rest of the movie, I wanted to be like, Anna Kendrick, don't fuck him. His dick has got a disease now. It's been in a dead thing. And there's diseases that people that, let's say, interact with dead bodies in ways that you're not supposed to, that they get. Yeah. Because it's a dead body. Ugh, right? Did you hear the story? It's like on TikTok. And he was like, one day we were starting school and they went around the classroom. It was in college. And they're like, tell your name and one interesting fact about yourself. And this girl was like, my name is blah, blah, blah. And I once had a disease in my mouth that you can only get from consuming dead human flesh. The whole class is like, I'm sorry, what? And it turns out that her boyfriend at the time was part of this group. They had murdered a man and they were consuming his flesh. And because she kissed the mouth that was eating the dead body, she got the disease in her mouth and it started to rot from the inside.
Oh my God, that's so gross.
And so I kept thinking about that with his dick.
That is so gross. Oh my God.
They never talk about it in the movie, but my brain has made it canon that he now has dead dick.
That's gross.
Yeah.
So gross.
Let's see what else. So they've rechristened their new relationship. Also in broad daylight at a park.
Yeah.
That, okay.
And like no one said anything.
Yeah. And they're on the phone together and they're doing that like cutesy lovey-dovey thing. We're like, oh no, you hang up. No, you hang up. And he's like, no, I want to eat your face off. And I was like, that's him saying the thing that she just said, I want to eat your face off. She's a zombie, dude. Yeah. And you're so like Twitter padded that you're like, no, I want to eat your face off. Also, at this point, she's been back in our living world or whatever for a few days. She's wearing the same clothes every time. They claim that she's building something in the attic. Her face gets cooked out in the sun while they're having sex because she's just a flesh bag now, like reanimated, but a flesh bag. And he's like, no, we just need to put some concealer on it.
I was like, you're so oblivious.
Right. Okay, and this is where we get into the cute aggression, where I was like, this is very clearly, I don't know if the person, who did this knew about the cute aggression research because it was published in 2014 and the movie came out in 2014. But I don't know if you noticed, but she has an exponentially growing sex drive. Yeah. And she's constantly needing to kiss him, be with him, like things like that. And I was like, this is my favorite thing about this theory. Again, like this is why I put these two movies in February, because of the desire, the need to consume the thing that you love. There was one part, a little gross. She fell off the roof of the house when she was trying to leave, and he looks over and she hit her head and he's like, are you okay? And she reaches back, she goes, yeah, no, I'm fine. But you can hear it go squish, squish. The only dark part to me, well, actual dark, not dark funny, was when they were at the beach. And that part was actually kind of scary. It's because she actually starts to become more classic zombie. Yeah. She's got rage issues. Yeah. She can't seem to like remember why they're there. She keeps losing sight for some reason. Yeah. Because she starts to freak out. She's like, where are you? Why did you leave me? And he was like, I'm right here. And he finally gets her back in the car. This is where he starts to continually ask her and like check in. Are you hungry? Yeah. And as she's going through the radio trying to find something to calm herself before she gets to the elevator music, she clips over NPR or some like news station, and all you hear is the radio talking about the destruction in the downtown, and then it clicks to the radio music. So it's a full-blown zombie something is happening. I feel like he should have come to the realization that she was a reanimated corpse when he was fucking her and not after the beach scene.
See, and I feel like part of him knew the whole time, but he was just so glad to have her back almost that he chose to ignore the obvious signs. There were so many red flags. Like, no, it's fine.
Yeah. So he's at a diner re-examining his life choices at this point. And Anna Kendrick comes in and they're big, very flirty. One of the things he says to her is, "You have really great skin." And she's like, "Oh, thanks." But he means in a "you're not a rotting corpse" type way. And then at one point he goes, "And I can breathe through my nose around you." And I was like, bro, all these things, you really were so desperate to have your ex-girlfriend. Because like that was the thing too, is that you find out that Beth doesn't really remember what happened to her. She's missing quite a bit of time. She thinks that she's still in school, but it's summer. And he was so mad at her when she came back because he was like, "Is this how far you would go to break up with me? You only told me you wanted to see other people and da-da-da." And so she broke up with him right before she died.
Yeah.
And so this entire movie is very clearly just about him reconciling their relationship and his grief and blah, blah, blah. But the extent to which he will go in order to ignore it's very funny to me. I love that Kyle kept trying to shoot Zachary when he came home. Because at this point they're all aware that there's something going on with zombies. I think their grandfather has come back. Yeah. They were calling him Poppy.
Yeah, and he wanted to go in the attic too.
Yeah. Which reminds me, the old owners of the house come in and the guy's like, "This is my house. I paid $28,000 for it." And Reiser's character goes, "I'm sorry, what? When was this?" Which is like a very clear dig at being cheap and Jewish. Yeah. But then the arguing zombies, Poppy, the grandfather, he was like, "I know a good attic." They're like arguing over the attic now. It's just ridiculous. But this is when the whole movie like is clearly wrapping up, full-blown
chaos.
Chaos everywhere. There's flares in the sky, there's sirens everywhere you go. This is where the Haitian joke finally wraps. The runner in the background finally wraps, and the cousin is like, "Nah, man, she quit because he exposed himself to her and wanted her to clean his dick." It was all about sexual harassment. Which, I mean, terrible. We're not laughing at the sexual harassment. No. We're laughing at the like under sort of the surface racism of, if there's a zombie outbreak, the Haitian who ran screaming out of the house, it clearly has to have something to do with her. Yep. Like that's very problematic, which they wrapped on well. But the end is kind of brilliant because it takes this kind of look at death and grief and loss, but also like, I think the grief of the relationship as well. Yeah. And wraps everything up really well because at the very, very, very end of the movie, the news is like, all the lights come back on, all the sirens are off, and the news is back on and reporting normally. And they're like, yeah, everything seems to be going back to normal. But that was because Beth is dead. Yeah. And so there's no more zombies. Everything is back to normal. Life can start again because he has gotten closure. Yep.
Which is like the whole grief process, I guess. You kind of are paused for a little bit in your chaos, and then you finally learn to resume life.
Jennifer, you're brilliant. You just triggered something for me. He went through the stages of grief. Yeah. Anger, denial, acceptance, all of it. That was the whole movie. It was the 7 stages of grief, but in a zombie movie.
Maybe that's why, because I was so caught up in his grief. I was so caught up in the grief, the warning signs, and him wishing for the past, and it obviously not being what he expected. And yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So it's anger, depression, denial, bargaining, acceptance, guilt.
Yeah.
Wow.
You went through all of those.
Oh my God. You really just, now I can see how it's more of a serious movie. They really did just do the 7 stages of grief through this like really absurd, dark comedy.
It's so funny because I was like, it is so serious. And I mean, I'm laughing with you because I'm like, yeah, those were funny parts. Like I just did it. Like I just was like so focused on his grief.
I think that must be like kind of a Jewish way of dealing with grief because after losing my mom, I was so shattered. there was a future and I would walk it, but it like didn't matter anymore, like what that future looked like. And it lasted for like a year, this fugue state. The only way I could start having good days was when I laughed or joked or whatever, you know, and it just was such a good movie looking at grief. And even if it wasn't about her death, it was definitely the death of the relationship because he seemed to be grieving that even before she died because he was so mad. I think even when he talked about the band he was in briefly, because I think Mr. Slocum was like, oh, your band. And he was like, oh, no.
I left.
Yeah, I left. And we split up. They broke up with me or something like that. And like he clearly was projecting his failed relationship with Beth on the band.
Yep. It was a good one.
It was really good. I'm still really concerned about Anna Kendrick's character and his dick and what it's been in.
Yeah, because that was just, that was not okay.
No. That was probably the only part where I was like, well, okay. It's a little much.
Well, I'm going to give you the trivia that I found on IMDb because I was like, one day I will rewatch and I will understand this things. Okay, so Nick Offerman can be heard narrating the documentary on Machu Picchu in the beginning of the film.
Oh my God, yes. That's why that voice sounded familiar.
Oh, it's good stuff. The photograph of Beth that Zach grabs near the end of the film was taken from the final scene of the Parks and Rec season 4, episode 6, End of the World.
Okay, because like I thought I recognized the background in that, and I know that in movies and stuff they use like the actor or actress's actual real life photos. I love that one.
Yeah. Near the end, Beth is talking on the phone with Andy. This is an obvious reference to her role in Parks and Rec, in which her husband, played by Chris Pratt, is also Andy.
That's right, because he was like, who's Andy? And she goes, someone who actually cares about me. Oh my God.
These are fun. I like how these are triggering you even more.
Yeah.
Of course, Jim O'Hare appears on Parks and Rec. He was the mailman. It says, oh, one of 3 films Aubrey Plaza and Anna Kendrick appear in together, along with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, which I've only watched Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I did not watch Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, but that's fun.
Yeah.
When Zach goes looking for Perlene, he instead encounters her cousin, credited as Haitian Man, who explains that the real reason that Perlene left the locum services is because she had sex problems and used to walk around naked in front of her. Oh, the audience is given a brief moment to reflect on how it would be traumatic for a younger woman to see a middle-aged naked man when a moment later the situation is reversed. Oh, that's right.
Oh my God, that's right, because the woman...
I forgot the woman was walking out.
And there is like a really long beat staying on her. And I remember thinking, why is this beat taking so long?
Me too.
That's why. Oh, that is brilliant.
That is really funny.
Oh, I love that. We're really sorry, guys. There's been a couple of connection issues, and we literally just talked for like 20 minutes without it being recorded.
For more trivia, go on IMDb because it has fun trivia. And we have to end this before before anything else happens. We'll see you soon. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, we had so many good little gems in that 20 minutes too.
And they're all gone. Oh, they're all gone. Oh, gosh.
Oh my God. Oh, you know what though? It may work out because I told a story about a family member that maybe I like don't need to be just like out there talking about people. Like, it's okay. That's good.
It's fine.
We'll save that for another day.
Yeah. We'll see y'all next time, y'all. We obviously I cannot be counted on to record anymore for today.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
If you liked listening to us ramble on about horror, subscribe to our podcast and tell your friends. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at LLOTL Podcast.
Check out our website by going to lastlibraryontheleft.com. Be sure to visit our About Us page to discover our 2 truths and a lie. Or, if you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at somethingwicked@lastlibraryontheleft.com.